So this is a guided, embodied self-empathy practice. It's inspired by Sabine Geiger, who got this work from Indal Kashtan, and who called it body NVC. And it turns out that I've been doing this kind of work with Bill Plotkin's Wild Mind. So that's another sort of like parallel area of research for me. So we're running into the limitations of Zoom right now. And there's a little bit of collective learning that happens in this exercise. So and it's going to be an embodied practice. So we're going to be moving and, connecting to, what might be happening for us. And because we're not in the same room and we're on Zoom, I'm going to invite, I'm looking for 2 to 4 people that are comfortable in their bodies, that are willing to leave their camera on while they're going through the practice. And the reason I'm inviting this is because, at least me, I started my NVC practice kind of in my head. It was very heady. And so going into my body is hard, and it doesn't always make sense. But I've learned through like my ecstatic dance community that sometimes I learn by seeing others. And so if you happen to be comfortable in your body, maybe you have a dance practice and you're willing to leave your camera on while you're doing this embodied practice, please raise your hand, because we'd like to have at least a handful. 2 to 4 would be ideal. And then everyone else is invited to turn off their camera, just so that we have 2 to 4 people. Rumiko, I see that your hand's up. Thank you. Anyone else willing to do the exercise? Basically, you're going to be invited to embody some of the feelings and some of the needs also that you're experiencing. So not seeing any other hands, but at least we have one. I can't do it because logistically I don't have enough room to do it, but maybe I'll do it anyway. Okay, so if you don't want to be seen by the camera, and let's see, Rumiko, and you can also unmute yourself, because we might be doing some sounds as well. So go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted.
For people that are not comfortable doing this with the video, just go ahead and shut your camera off. So the practice is, we start off by identifying a trigger from your life. And we're looking for something maybe around a level 6, level 5, level 6 out of 10. We don't want to go much higher than that, because we don't have a lot of time and space to process it. And I find it helpful to close your eyes. I can't close my eyes because I'm facilitating the process, but and definitely I invite you to stand up. And I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds to identify this trigger situation. The whole point of the workshop is to turn these triggers into bouquets. So that's the invitation. So I'll give you about 10 more seconds to identify this trigger in your life. And as you think about this trigger, notice the sensation in your body. Do a body scan, maybe starting from your head, working your way down, I tend to have tension in my shoulders. And you follow the sensation by locating the place in your body where it's showing up. So you're invited to place your hand in the area where you're feeling the sensation. Like for me, I feel it in my shoulders and in my neck. And say hello to this sensation. And stay with it. Don't try to push it away, but notice it, welcome it. Allow it to express itself. And allow yourself to fully feel the sensation. So now you're invited to express through movement and maybe sounds this feeling that you're having. Maybe you can dance it or just move in any way that expresses the feeling. Maybe you just crunch up into a ball, or maybe there's movement. Maybe there's jumping. Maybe you cover your face. If you haven't fully identified with the feeling, stay with movement and sound until you have like integrated this feeling within yourself. So this is the important part. We're connecting the body to the feeling. And usually movement is helpful. Some kind of movement is helpful. So I invite you to verbally name the feeling that you experience. Go ahead and name the feeling out loud to yourself. You know, it might be sadness, might be tension, frustration, anger, could even be anger. So explore with emotion some kind of movement that represented your need, that represents your need, that you're longing to have filled with this feeling. So if your need is for companionship, go ahead and move in a way that expresses your desire for companionship. It might be opening up your arms. It might be bringing your chest forward. And the invitation is for you to explore what's behind the feeling. Maybe inviting a dance for what the feeling is trying to say. But you're invited to give some movement to the need. And movement is good. Give some movement to the need. Yeah, and if you're inviting connection, maybe you're opening up your arms. Kind of like a breaststroke. And once you're into that movement, that flow that represents your need, go ahead and give words to that need that you're longing to have filled, either within yourself or with your partner or with someone else. If it's connection, go ahead and name it. If it's sustainability, go ahead and name that. Maybe it's a need for justice and inclusion. Or maybe the need is for acceptance. So go ahead and continue your movements, representing your need. And allow yourself to mourn that that need isn't being filled right now. Allow yourself to feel, you know, whatever's coming up, sadness, frustration, anger, annoyance. allow yourself to have that experience of having a longing and not having the need being filled. And we'll stay in the morning for a little bit longer because the morning stage is important. Allowing yourself to feel the sadness or the longing that's there. And I know that there are a lot of times that I try to rush this stuff. And if you're doing this on your own, be sure to give yourself enough time to emote, to allow that morning to take place. And once you're sufficiently expressed in your feeling and that morning, and you notice an energy shift, then this is the time to imagine the need being met in any way. So engage your imagination. And this imagination could be based on past experience, but it doesn't have to be. You can have a little fun with creating the experience that you really want to have, and maybe it's never happened before. And you can continue the movement as you imagine your need being fulfilled. And it's important to allow yourself to engage in this imagination, sort of like someone said earlier, like with the mind of a child, allowing for novelty and the aliveness and innocence of a child to come forth in your expression. And as you are embodying this need in your movement, notice how you're feeling as a result of experiencing the need in this way. What are the feelings that are coming up for you now that you've imagined your need being fully met? So maybe a smile is spontaneously coming up for you. So notice whether or not there's a different feeling that you're experiencing. Is it different than what you started with? So just become aware of that difference. And if you haven't noticed a difference, then you're invited to go back into exploring the original feeling that we did before. So if you haven't felt a shift, then you're invited to go back into that movement related to the body. So if there was a shift, you might want to stay in the feeling. And I find it helpful to kind of encapsulate this new feeling with some kind of way that might be memorable to you. So like a hand gesture or maybe a part of your body that you could touch. Like I often will touch my chest, or maybe you're touching your belly. So any kind of movement or gesture that would allow you to go back to it. Right. So I want to invite us, when you're ready, to come back into the room. Invite you to turn on your camera if you're participating again, so that we know that you're here. And yeah, before we get like intellectual and take this process a little bit further, I'd love to hear from 2 or 3 people on how this process was for you. If you could raise your hand. Rumiko?
Yeah, you can really feel the difference in your body based on what your mind is thinking, even though you're not in that same situation that triggered it. It's as if you were, because I haven't done that exercise before, and I really felt it, because a lot of my triggers come from a lack of self-confidence or lack of self-esteem. But once I imagined having that need, I don't even know if that's a need, but I think that's a need to feel confident, or maybe that's a feeling. That's a feeling.
Yeah.
But still getting them mixed up. But once I imagined that feeling, then I really felt it in my body.
Thank you, Rumiko. So you noticed a correlation between your thinking and how it was showing up in your body through feeling.
Mm-hmm. And the posture and everything. Yeah, the muscles knew what was going on up here.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Miranda, I see your hands up. Go ahead and mute yourself, please.
Thank you. So I loved this exercise. Thank you. It was really, I felt pretty free in my body to take on the shapes that felt, embodied to the feelings. And so my trigger is not being heard. And so when I went into that feeling, I was sort of, crunching around myself, and I really felt sad, and I felt quite worthless, and I felt it was really strongly in my chest, and I just sort of like collapsed in on myself. And I feel like that's actually what I do, in real life when I'm not being heard. Like, I just sort of collapse into myself, and I don't bother sharing anymore. And so I understood the task to, what was my need. It was to be seen, to be included, to be valued by another person. And so those were kind of like, in my imagination, the experience was to imagine the person who doesn't hear me saying things like that to me, like, I understand you, I hear you, and I accept you fully, even if you have a different opinion to me. And in that, I just felt a real sense of, I was actually really tearful in that experience as well, but it was more like a release or a joyful tearfulness. I felt much more open and much more compassionate towards that person, and less angry towards them as well. So it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. And you noticed an energy shift between the different stages. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So we're going to take this exercise and do a little bit more with it. Anyone else want to share how it was for you before we move on? I'm curious, for the people that had their camera off, was it helpful to see a few others actually embodying the practice? So when I first started this work, I was so in my head that I didn't even know what it meant, to move. And so anyway, just wondering if it was helpful or not. Yeah, Taylor, so I see a little wave hand. See some thumbs up. Excellent.
I kind of did the exercise while thinking about what we previously learned. And I realized that I was trying to fulfill my unmet need by giving that to others. But then I heard kind of in the back of my head, it's just a bad strategy. So maybe that's where my frustration is. So that actually got really clear. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Taylor. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next segment.